Pete, welcome back to another episode of Two Sides of the Table. How have you been?
Yeah, it's fantastic to be back in the studio again. And we're actually in a new studio for
We
those that
are.
are observant on the YouTube channel. They'll see that we're on the opposite sides of the table, but still here.
Still, we are two sides of the table. That's right. Different sides. We have a beautiful new studio, thankfully. And I think as time goes on, we'll be able to see if we'll be able to do a few different angles and different styles of podcasts. So we're pretty excited about what it's looking like. Pete, what have you been up to? Because it has been nearly a month since we were in the studio together.
Yeah, time has definitely flown, that's for sure. So I was lucky enough to get across to London for the MSPs show, which was a absolute cracking event across there, and gearing up actually for the Ninja One and Halo MSP Masterclass that kicks off next week in Sydney. So yeah, lots of exciting stuff going on, and I know you haven't just been sitting back doing nothing. So
Sadly not. We've been on a similar journey to you this month. I think I've heard it referred to as May Madness the other day. So, and I definitely resonated with that comment. This month we've been down in Melbourne at both the Kaseya Troop here and the ConnectWise Evolve. So myself and the team were down there running across the road to both events. So that was quite fun. And then I was actually back in Melbourne on Wednesday for a presentation to the sales group down there. So that was quite insightful and quite interesting. Came away with definitely a few insights there, which I'm hoping we'll be able to explore a little bit today. We are still in season 3, believe it or not. So we do realise that the episodes have been a little bit few and far between sometimes, and we are doing our best to try and get them as close together as we can. But obviously, as you just heard with all the travel, it's been a little bit hard to find recording time.
yeah, I think you're just giving me that look about my calendar at the moment there. So, yeah, definitely a little bit crazy. I did miss the May Madness, but the team certainly had their skates on going backwards and forwards between Troop here and Evolve, that's for sure.
That's it. It was fun. It's all fun. So as we are in season 3, we are joined today by another guest, and today we are welcoming Nicolette Baker, who is the CMO over at Inception Marketing. So Nicolette is a seasoned CMO who has worked in the IT and tech space for close to 15 years now. And she is joining us today to chat about all things marketing for MSPs and IT service providers, particularly around what they struggle with, what she sees the biggest mistakes being, and sharing her insights and I guess a little bit of insight from other industries as well that she's sort of been looking at. So Nicolette, welcome to Two Sides of the Table.
Thank you. Thank you both for having me.
All right, so let's start off and let's sort of throw you in the deep end right away. What are you seeing in the market at the moment in regards to marketing for IT service providers and MSPs?
Oh, great, meaty question. I'd say things aren't working as well as what they used to. Sometimes we bet on a particular channel or a particular horse or an event, and things aren't going as smoothly. Market conditions externally, a lot of customers are making or taking longer purchasing decisions. So we're getting a bit nervous out there on, do we have the right strategy? Do we have the right people? Do we have the right budget? Or should we just chop and change entirely, throw it out, and maybe we need a whole new team? So there's a lot of that out there at the moment.
Yeah, it may be worth just taking a little bit of a step back because I think, Kayla, you were saying you presented at the sales leadership down at the role-based groups, and I think one of the things is sales and marketing are often confused as just one big pot of resource and capability inside of an organisation. Maybe it's worth just taking a step back and sort of where does marketing fit in and how does it differentiate from the sales function? Because they're very different, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. I like to think of marketing as that customer facing, forward facing, whether it's brand perception, but it's really got to be out there educating, reaching as far as it can, educating a wider audience about what the services and the value that you provide and help bringing them in. It's kind of this lovely push and pull. I like to think as salespeople that they will push out to market and pull in what's there and available. And marketing's job is really to educate and bring in as many people and eyeballs in as possible. So the two have to work hand in hand. And I will say this, Pete, no two marketing and sales teams inside an organisation are the same. Sometimes it can be more market-led, sometimes it can be more sales-led. It really depends on the maturity of the organisation, which I'm glad you brought up Evolve and some of those sales conversations we were having, because you could see each individual business is so different. So being able to change and augment and meet people where they are and help them at that next phase, I think that's the critical point.
Yeah, I agree. And so, what you mentioned branding just then. What's the difference between branding and marketing? Or do they all fall under the same umbrella?
No. I kind of like to split them in two. There's this very distinct two teams in the world of IT tech anyway and tech marketing. And it's really that brand marketing is about how do we educate, how do we entertain, how do we get more eyeballs, how do we let people know that we're fun and dynamic. You know, there's all this different stuff out there you can do, and it's a little bit more basically as many people as you can get. How do you pull them in? And I think that's got to be done in a very different way now compared to even 6 months ago or even 12 months ago. So I'm actually seeing that brand marketing space is playing really well. How we're consuming media in our private lives is very much bleeding into that B2B now. People expect influencer marketing vibes. People want to have a big presence. Podcasts are really turning up to have deeper conversations. Meta is going off in particular channels for particular people. And it's just how people want to digest content is different. Then you go over to the performative side, right? The digital side of things. When we're talking about that side of marketing, that is very much about where the rubber meets the road, and that's where the salespeople see the benefit. That's the real entrenchment over there. Those two distinct teams need to have very different mindsets. We were talking about that recently, weren't we, Pete?
Yeah, and look, when I think of branding as an MSP, having been there myself many years ago, for me, branding was, sponsoring the local footy team, going and putting a wrap on my car and maybe a logo on my polo shirt.
The logo.
But it sounds like branding is a lot more than that. So how should we be thinking about branding differently, especially in 2026, rather than just being the footy team having it on the back of the jersey?
That's a really good question. There's a time and a place for that. And I think you always got to think about, where are my customers? Mm-hmm. So how are you getting leads right now? Every business should ask themselves, how am I getting them right now? How do I do more of that? And is this activity of sponsoring a local footy team going to deliver that value? Are clients or potential clients there? And if it's, hey, my kids want some sponsorship for the local footy team, great. But please don't think that that's going to deliver ROI. It's probably just goodwill in a community. So that's not considered branded, just sticking your logo on it and thinking it's going to deliver something. The type of brand that I'm talking about is really, how do you unpack the soul? This is quite deep, but the soul of a brand and a business, and how does that get out to more people? That cultural piece needs to come through. Where is that grittiness of a brand? I used to refer to brands as people. If you were to talk about them as if they're a person, how would you describe them? And how do you create content from that place? How do you kind of make sure that is always distilled and out there? And that's kind of where we're moving towards, that more fun, bite-sized piece information.
I heard it referred to as branding's the reason someone goes on the date, but marketing's the reason they stay.
We talk about that. We have absolutely.
Yeah, not necessarily the dating analogy, but the way I always thought of branding is someone that stays in a lot of hotels. I could be in a Hyatt, I could be in a Hilton, I could be in Marriott. There's nothing really that makes each of those hotels very different. However, if you think about what a Nike hotel would be or an Apple hotel would be, you can almost visually picture in your own mind what that would actually look like there. So that's sort of, creating a persona around that.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
We saw recently this week what a Apple car is going to look like, right? Thanks to Ferrari.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, looks like something that's basically just been put together, a few little Lego blocks there, but that's a different story. And You sort of said something there, but you didn't actually quite say the word around ICP, around,
Oh, yeah.
ideal customer profile. And it's one of those three-letter acronyms that gets thrown around in marketing circles. But it sounded like you were trying to describe there that, one of the challenges that many MSPs have is actually knowing who their customer is.
Yeah, that's true. And do you know where you start from? Who you're serving today. Who do you serve today? And if it's a mix, great. That's okay. But let's be really clear about their buying behavior. Why are they sticking with you? How are you able to delight them, service them, and how do you find more of them? So some MSPs are doing really well because their service levels are fantastic, right? And then also they get lots of great referral work or word of mouth. That's still lead generation. That's still capturing leads and inquiries. But how do you do more of that? How do you reward your current customers and how do you find more to do of that before you go and play in a different kind of realm? The ICP specifically is around your ideal customer profile, so who you serve today, but also do you see opportunity for a win adjacent? Do we do the vertical play or the horizontal play? Which way do we want to go in regards to that? And if we know we can service these people really well, okay, what are those behaviors? What do they look like? And is there another market we can tap into that we think that we could still service incredibly well that would want to do business with us? So sometimes it's just about tacking on the next best thing and exhausting all options in your current ICP.
I'm going to be honest, this sounds like really hard work. Like, I've got
Yes.
operational issues here. I'm trying to roll out Thread to get voice AI into my service desk here. I've got challenges around customers that aren't happy. I'm trying to do budgets and all of these other things. Where do I find time to do marketing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Our customers don't, right? And they have realised at some point in their growth, they don't have the time. There are so much nuances when it comes to marketing, like we were just talking about brand versus performance. Oh, I'm going to do this webinar. Excellent, that's going to deliver me leads, but it doesn't. Why? Why doesn't it? Because you're talking about LastPass or you're talking about a particular product or M365. Is that delivering value to your current customers? Who does it deliver out to? And how are you marketing to them? Just the marketing assets alone in delivering a campaign, that is so much work. There's a lot of work involved, but that doesn't mean that it all falls short because there are some quick wins. And the quick wins are if you are small and you are nimble and you're trying to get things up and running, the thing that will deliver you in spades is founder-led content. How do you get your face out there? Because guess what? You are the business. You're the brand. You're the business. How do you get out there? How do you create more content that's valuable for your clients? Not for only your buddies in IT, but your actual clients, and get more comfortable with being visible, because I do find that that's the biggest journey.
I know our listeners love a good shortcut, so it'd be good maybe if we can look at, some other tips that people should be really starting to think about, because I think, you look at some great brands out there like Dick Smith or Bob Jane Team Art, very much driven by the individual founders there.
Yeah.
And so the first tip I'm hearing is really the founder, creating an identity and creating content that others can resonate with.
Yeah.
And so what would be your second tip if we're trying to shortcut and get our marketing function really working inside of an MSP?
Yeah, I think the next step after creating that founder-led content is how are you actually going to capture leads or interests? So you need some type of mechanism to do that. Obviously, you would have a website at this point in time, or maybe it's just your DMs on LinkedIn or whatever platform. Where are you putting all that information? Where is that going? So you can start to analyze. And then how do you add more value? So you'll be getting feedback through your content and through your current customers. How do you create more content that's valuable to them? So it is content generation, whether that's a PDF download. We talk about ebooks. I mean, that you can really shorten those down these days. How do you get a lead magnet in some shape or form in an awareness format on a website, capture more leads, and how do you bring them through the funnel?
Yeah, there were a lot of buzzwords in there, and maybe
Excellent.
the first one is just thinking about that CRM, because isn't that just what the PSA is? So my professional services automation tool.
You're really going for it today, Pete. Excellent. Yes, no, a PSA tool I don't believe will deliver you. It will deliver the top functionality for those early people, right? And there's a maturity in point in time where you want to get really detailed about, okay, I understand that these are my customers. How am I even going to email market them? How am I going to send them information? Is that PSA? No. You need to look at something. There's affordable other options CRMs out there. There's introductory CRMs, and you can go the full hog. Yes, I'm referring to HubSpot. That can offer you lots of different things in this world, but there's starter packages that you can start to see that are $22 a month. $22 a month, and you can send emails, you can nurture those leads, you can be able to qualify them. And I think those kind of activities are really important for that next phase of being able to take people through from an interest into, hey, they might be ready to have a sales conversation.
And so it's a good way for our listeners to think about is a lot of the PSAs in more market talk about from quote to cash, and really thinking about anything that's prior to a quote is where a CRM system comes in. And as soon as you get to quote, that's where the PSA system comes in. Is that what you're seeing people who are doing that well thinking about?
Yeah, I think that there's a little bit of a crossover. I see that some of the PSA is trying to move more into the email marketing landscape and things at the moment. I'm yet to see how it works well. There is some integrations, but personally, at the moment, there does need to be that beautiful crossover from marketing into sales.
Because we're seeing a lot of PSA systems like start to buy up like other CRM systems or email or marketing automation systems, aren't we? Like good example I think at the moment is ConnectWise buying Glass Hive. We're seeing a lot of that starting to come through. So I think that they are, they're definitely starting to encroach into that territory. But I mean, I agree with you. I don't think we're yet to see one that's done it really well.
Yeah, or can offer the same level of functionality. So the real intelligence that you can get. So once you capture a lead, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
Like, do you just call them straight away? I don't know. You get something on a website, you get an inquiry, hey, I'm interested, maybe if they're talking about a quote or some pricing or they've got an urgent issue, sure. But someone that's downloaded something or just looking to shop around or possibly not. So how are you going to educate them, and in what methodology do you do that? And does the PSA functionality with Glass Hive, or I think Halo now offer MailChimp integration, does that do the same type of thing natively? I'm not really seeing that.
And is that what a sales journey is? Because I often hear about people talk about a sales journey, and it sounds like that's that sort of stepped process that somebody goes through.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 3 different categories here that we're referring to. We're referring to a cold audience member, a warm lead, let's call them that, which at that point in time we'd probably refer to them as an MQL. And then when they're hot, guess what? That's a SQL. That's moving into an opportunity call.
Wow. So hang on. What's an MQL and an SQL, and what are the differences
I'm a
here?
database guy. That's structured query
Let's-
language.
Awesome. Okay, so when you're thinking about a lead is somebody that might just fill out a contact form or download something from your website. Like download something, it could be an ebook, it might be a brochureware.
So that's the lead magnet
That's the
piece.
lead magnet piece.
So
Yeah, Pete,
you're creating something that somebody wants.
Yes.
Value.
Value. And, it has to be
and that's where
value.
that digital currency comes in of an email address. Because I often hear people talk about a digital currency of, I want to give something so that somebody gives me something, being their email address.
Yeah, so let's talk about something right here. Is the crucial part everyone falls over is back to that other, I'm going to create a webinar about M365 because everyone's going to join and just give me all their M365 licensing business. That I don't see that happening. It's bigger business value conversations and where IT needs to play into that, and that lead magnet needs to do the same. So some exceptional campaigns that are working right now for us and for some of our clients and that we see really working well is hinging on something that's happening in the client's world, fin services, AFSL holders. They have very tight cyber restrictions and rules and obligations. For them not to meet those, ASIC will come down on them. There's some stuff out in court at the moment that they're going through. As an IT service provider, what's really crucial if you service those markets is how are you talking to that? How are you talking not about the certain controls and the bits and pieces, but how are you educating them on their liabilities? What are they potentially not looking at? That how to add value to the client in a download is crucial, and that's just a lead. They want to learn about the information. They don't want to buy licenses yet.
So that's why it's really important to understand the ICP.
Absolutely.
So
'cause
you
if
know what to say.
Yep. ICP first, understand what they're going through, their pain points, what's happening in their world, and how does IT, in the world of IT, and how do you solve those problems? How can you support and help advise to them? That you can gate that becomes a lead. You then nurture them through a series of activities. You might have a webinar that you might want to unpack some of those things around with an insurance broker or with a lawyer, or there's lots of different things that you can do. At that point in time, if someone has been a cold audience member, downloads a lead, moves through to a webinar, and is showing those various steps, reads a newsletter or a customer email, that's qualified as a MQL, a marketing qualified lead. They have had multiple engagements with a brand before saying, I want a quote. If someone's asking you for a quote, that to me is a break fix model, or my house is burning, it's on fire. And that's up to you what you think about that.
And I think it's really interesting because this topic came up on Wednesday when I was presenting to the sales group, and they wanted to know like my definitions of an MQL or lead, an MQL, an SQL, an opportunity, and it's really, we can give you rough guidance around that stuff, I think, but like it's really bespoke to the business, because they could consider an SQL a sales qualified lead at a different point to what other businesses do. So it is really important that you have that definition documented somewhere in your business, and that's passed on to your marketing and your sales team to actually, follow through with, because how we classify things could be completely different to how you classify things, Pete.
Yeah, and I think that sort of comes back to that sales journey also, and just understanding where somebody sits in that, because I often think that, people typically don't consummate the marriage on the first date, and business relationships are the same. And I think as a salesperson, and I've often gone in too quickly rather than actually nurturing someone along the way, because they weren't quite ready. So they might have actually downloaded an ebook, but it didn't mean that they were ready to transact. They were part of that information gathering process to try and actually build up, are we the right fit for them as an organisation?
Yeah, moving from, so that's a perfect example from cold audience and how do you warm them up? And that can take some time, and it might be they're just not ready yet. Does that mean that the lead is dead? No. You keep going and going and going. They will disqualify themselves at some point in time. You will see they don't open emails. They're not doing any of that stuff. Unsubscribe, all of these things. But we keep the contact and we continue to nurture them.
Sounds like my dating experience. Someone's just ghosting me, basically. So.
Did you get a lot of those, Pete?
No. and so 2 tips so far by the sounds of it. So one is the founders really starting to create their own identity and their own voice. The second one I'm hearing is, making sure that there's a robust CRM system in place to help, create some structure around the marketing process. What else should, business owners and founders of managed service providers be thinking about when it comes to shortcutting the whole marketing piece?
Yeah, I will say this. If there is no foundation, which we gave an example of there, right? So CRM, thinking about what your ICP is. If you don't have a good website, you don't have these tools, you are going to invest. You cannot expect a sale or ROI for a period of time until the foundation is built. And while the foundation is being built, whether that's across your website or all the different tech stacks, whilst we're educating ourselves and the MSP on, hey, is this ICP a right fit? Are they responding to you in this particular manner? Do you have an audience? We need to build up a list and an audience. And while we go through that process, putting more money into it seems like it will go faster. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it takes time, and then it's messy, right? We see it so messy, and you need to go back and you need to refine that. Okay, maybe we got the ICP wrong. So what do you do in that regard? Do you start again, or do you take your learnings and do you think about different markets? Let's face it, most MSPs have a decent customer base. It's maybe just hasn't been segmented, and how do you educate more of those people and farm more of those people in? It's more of the more for most MSPs that we're seeing at the moment, and how you take them through to that next stage.
Yeah. How are we seeing AI changing the game for marketing?
Yeah. So how we are using it and how our clients are using it is really interesting. So specifically, I think AI, everyone's talking about agents taking over full functions. It's not possible. The hallucinations, I know in AI agents you set up the rules. We're starting to play around with what that could look like for Inception. And they've got the mind of its own. Right? It's not mature. It is learning grounds, and it is very infant. Where it adds value for clients is in speeding up the process. We are quite sophisticated in our process for how we go about planning campaigns, and then the process that we go through to deliver the assets, get them reviewed, and we launch. Sometimes, depending how sophisticated a campaign could look like, which is basically, are we going to do ads? Are we doing a webinar? Are we doing an event? What are we doing? Whatever that campaign is, it can take us 10 to 12 weeks before you're out in market. Sometimes 6 if you're incredibly quick at it and the founder is working with you to be able to get there. The problem is it takes that long to get up and running, and then you're in market. You need to be in market as quick as possible, learning for as long as possible. So what AI does, and with our customers that are happy for us to use it and say, let's just get out quicker, we can drastically reduce that time of campaign creation. So we're out in market, because the market tells you if the ICP is wrong, if the creatives are wrong, if the campaign's shit.
It's a feedback loop.
It's massively a feedback loop, and it needs to happen daily, weekly. It's continuously being worked on to make sure, okay, we've got the ICP right, and also we've addressed their problems and we know how to solve them.
Yeah, it's interesting because the ConnectWise 2026 marketing report came out, I think, 2 weeks ago now. And I think you distill that down, there were sort of 2 key points. And one of those is that MSPs aren't leveraging AI enough for marketing. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're seeing as well. But the second point is that MSPs aren't spending enough in marketing as well.
Yeah.
Shock.
Yeah.
And so this is sort of that classic, I always think, how much? Like, you know, everyone's in Australia's coming towards the end of, FY26, starting to do budgets for FY27. It's pretty easy to just put a red line through that marketing number and just try and take some more profit off the table. But what should people be spending?
Yeah, so glad that you asked. We see business owners anywhere between 3 to 5% is usually being, well, wait, Pete. the 3 to 5% is an entry level budget
Of revenue.
Yeah. 3 to 5%
not
of
profit,
revenue.
revenue.
Yeah,
Wow.
revenue on marketing. And so because you want a maximum amount of money to play with, whether that's ads or events or getting out there and doing things with customers. Bringing more customers in, it's going to take that type of momentum, but 3 to 5% of revenue, and the good ones are doing about 10 to 15.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. It sounds like it's the old, you got to spend money to make money.
Yes, that is correct. but it depends on their risk tolerance. So it's okay to start at 3 or 5. So you get the momentum, you understand what's going on, because most of the MSPs we have worked with haven't worked with marketing functions before. So if you haven't worked with a marketing function, you don't know what information they require. It's really about building that capability internally as well with the founder to make sure that, hey, we really do want to grow. These are the things that are going to get there. And usually after a good 12 months, we'll see budgets increase too, because we've been able to deliver those results. So therefore, okay, let's bet on that. Let's do more.
It's a gradual incline as well, I think.
Yeah.
Like it's not, we don't always start at the 3 to 5%. Sometimes it's 1% or 2%, and then we slowly work our way up.
And so do you think that resistance is I think we're all guilty of it. We've gone and lit up a whole heap of cash on Google Ads and not seen anything come of that. Is that why you think that there's often resistance to spend money on marketing?
Oh, I love that question. There is a lot of people come to us with trauma and baggage, and agencies can get a bad rap because they solve a piece of the puzzle. They don't solve the total piece of the puzzle. And I think that's really important to know is when do I hire when you're using a Google Ads agency, that's doing a form of marketing versus, hey, I want to actually have a marketing function. It happens to be outsourced. I'm using Inception, or I hire internally. Let's build that capability. What does that look like from there? I do see across the board, we hear every week, every day, do you think?
At least once a week.
Yeah, we acquire a lot of people that have tried a lot of things previously and therefore have been burned, but there's not that overarching strategy, that CMO strategy that sits to grow the business and says, okay, you're here, you want to be here, okay, let's just step that out, because that maturity journey for growth, sales and marketing together to grow a business isn't more just chuck stuff on and water it and see. It's really got to grow gradually.
Do you think as well that it's important to understand what each of the platforms is used for? Like Google Ads is surely very different to LinkedIn ads and Meta ads. Like you might have tried one thing, it hasn't worked, and so you've gone, marketing just doesn't work for me. But actually having that understanding of what each of the platforms is designed to do and the type of customer it's designed to bring in is surely part of the strategy.
Yes, absolutely. It's a part of the play. Often we will hear, let's just do Meta ads. It's like, okay, what? Why? Oh, I don't know. It worked for someone else. Or Google ads. Let's do that. I'm not sure that's the right play. Like, is your ideal customer going to Google, typing in keywords to find you? I don't think people are looking that way anymore. That is a very small percent of being able to attract and bring in some leads. That's not the play, but I would categorize, to me, if you're metro, in the MSP IT landscape, you absolutely should be doing LinkedIn ads for that middle of funnel campaigns, right? They are going to be able to get you the most amount of qualified senior decision makers in to educate. Meta, where we're seeing Meta work fantastic, and yes, some people are playing around with TikTok, is specifically around that disruption tool. We talk about that a lot. Okay, where do MSPs clients hang out morning and night? They're probably consuming some content on those platforms, and so that's working as well. But every channel has its tool. If you're talking regional's different again. Meta local ads is doing fantastic, local groups. So each individual MSP and their clients are going to have a very different channel segmentation. It's not easy. It's unique to each.
It's not the same, yeah.
No, it's never the same.
And is that where MSPs really need to start to think about how they differentiate themselves and stand out? Because I always just thought to be an MSP, you needed a blue website, you needed to say you had the best customer service, you've got the great people, and you're a partner with about 20 different vendors that you work with. Isn't that sort of just how I put my website together?
Yeah, well, that's probably how you start, but that's not how you're going to grow. And I think that's probably the right framing of it. I specifically in that example, Pete, you can't think that how you do things is the same as everyone else, because it's not. We service so many MSPs, and the way they go about delivering for their clients is very different. It might technically be the same with the vendor, the product shop that they're selling, but the services, how they deliver their services, their culture, what their founder is about, the different customers that they really focus on, that's the secret sauce. And we talked before about that soul of the brand. That's all wrapped up in there. How does that come out? That's really different.
Yeah, and I think I like the way you closed the loop there, because I often think we're all guilty of actually saying what we do as opposed to how we actually go about doing it. And that, I think, comes back to the statement you made before. It's often about what's the problem that you actually solve for organisations that need an MSP. Because I don't think they really care about the speeds and the feeds and things like that. They're really, what is it that you do, and how do you know the industry, whether that's financial services or retail or whatever that might be.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
So how long should people actually expect to wait before they start seeing leads rolling through the door? Because I think it's very common sometimes, maybe not that common, but I think it's something heard often that we turn marketing on and we expect 50 leads through the door the next week. That's not realistic.
Do you know what? I'm going to give you two very different opinions and experiences. We have worked with an MSP and ran a campaign full hog at it. We had 3 months to deliver ROI, and we did deliver them 55 net new leads. 55. But
off one campaign. Wow.
And with 100 people that had, or 112 that registered for a webinar. Can I tell you why that worked? Because they knew their ICP. They already had people out there in their ICP, ideal customer profile, that were warm but not yet engaging. So people were watching. The founder is very influential in that segment. So as soon as we put something out there, boom, the warm leads kind of came closer. The cold leads kind of came closer. The audience was watching. They wanted to participate. Where it takes longer is when you've done nothing like that before. Yeah? So if you're not known in the industry yet, you don't know why you're different yet, it can take some time to warm up those cold audience members. So we see there should be very much this top of funnel, just educating and farming out that cold audience. We see bringing those people in and turning them into a warm lead could take 8 months.
Did that client A spend more money as well?
No.
Okay. So it's not about money.
Sometimes it's not about money. Sometimes it depends about how much. They are, to be fair, they're not on a baseline package with us. So we are running full stack campaigns, and they spent a decent amount, $2,000 for 6 weeks on an ad campaign to be able to get people into the webinar and to sign up. And there was a 50-50 split between 50% of people that they weren't current customers, but they had prospects. See, they had 600, I think, on their prospect list. So that transacted, right? So that's come through. And then the other 50 were from ads, people that are just on the sphere waiting, watching. I've heard of them, but I'm too busy to engage. But now I have.
Yeah, and it sounds about, we were talking about short-circuiting before, and it sounds like they were able to effectively short-circuit because that owner already was identified, they had a persona that people could relate to.
Exactly.
But also, secondly, it sounded like they'd made the investment already in a CRM system to be able to then have those leads to be able to then target those with that.
Correct. Yes, that was already set up and running. And by the time they met us, they were infancy marketing, pulling it together. They were using MailChimp at that particular point in time and just sending out emails, customer newsletters, but customer comms. So there was stuff. They were going out, the owner was doing some talks out there, going out and meeting customers. They were very influential within their segment and they knew it. You know how I could tell? We did some audience segmentation on LinkedIn, and when we dissected, okay, what companies or industries follow you, it was really high in this particular industry. And when you look at that, it's like, okay, people are already watching, they're there. That's an easier one to kind of pull in. If you don't have any of that, the journey will take longer.
Yeah, I think that's the type of research as well that goes into a strategy, is actually looking at that and understanding and making recommendations that you can, target particular industries because you've already got a strong presence in, one particular area.
Absolutely. And you just have to meet MSPs need to go on the journey. We just got to meet them where they are and take the next step and then the next and then the next. It's not about the shiny thing. It's not about a new tool. It's not about AI, which I consider a tool and a mechanism for delivering better or quicker outcomes. I really think it's about, just taking that next step and then the next step and then the next step. Having strategic oversight, understanding what's going to play out, but then you really need to chunk into it. Also, a lot of people, when they get through a campaign, they go, okay, that was great. On to the next thing. Yep. No, how do we double down? How do we do more? That's when I was saying at the start of the conversation, how do you grow that? How do you get more influential? How do we go deeper in that segment instead of just running off to the next shiny thing, which, let's be honest, common in this sector.
Yeah. I always love the consultant, it depends answer, but I think what I'm hearing though is there's no silver bullet for marketing, and really the opportunity is just simply get started and start to try some things with that. And I think one of the reasons that we started this season was really about bringing experts to the table, because I think as business owners, we try to be the expert across everything. And as I always say to my wife, between Claude and myself, we know everything. But the reality is we still need to bring in people that have done it before. And that's why I think, just thinking, for business owners, marketing is one of those dark arts, and just having someone else that's able to provide that advice and guidance can mean that small amount of budget that you've got can certainly go a lot longer and a lot further.
Yeah. Definitely, I agree. Nicolette, thank you so much for joining us today. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
LinkedIn. I'm all over it. Please reach out. Otherwise, you can find us via the Inception Marketing website as well, and reach out to us there.
Fabulous. Pete, thank you so much for joining me on the other side of the table.
It was awesome to be back in the studio, Kayla, and look forward to the next episode.